Hello guys, in this video we're going to continue with my workstation build that I ended up completing a couple years ago. So I'm playing some catch up here. I have a bunch of video files that have been sitting on my NAS for a couple years now, and I've been needing to make the audio voiceovers for them because when I did my workstation build, I just filmed it and I did not record any audio. So this workstation has already been built. It's in service. It's actually what I'm recording the audio voiceover on right now. So this is from 2019. And this is part 2 of the workstation build. The first part was the motherboard, which was the MSI X99A Workstation board. So this is going to be the case prep video. Okay, so for the case, I went with the Corsair Obsidian series 750D Airflow Edition. Now, the Airflow Edition basically has the vents for the 2 intake fans in the front. So the first part that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tape off of the shrink wrapped or protective film. And as you can see, the door also comes flying off because the door was not fully on there. But the shrink wrap will just peel right off. And now you can see the front intake fan filter. So that is what's different between the 750D Airflow and this regular 750D. The Airflow Edition has all those vents in the front to allow really good intake. Now they give us 2, I believe those are 140 mils fans. We will be replacing those with the Corsair, or not the Corsair, with the Noctua fans. So there I am putting the fan filter back on. It's kind of tricky how their fan filter goes on. You gotta rest these 2 pegs on these little ledges at the bottom. Once you get that, it will click into place at the top. And you just give it a little push where the little square indentations are. So there's me trying to figure out how the 750D front filter goes on, but once you learn how those ledges sit in there, you can get it there on out. So I'm going to try a different angle on this time, and it shouldn't be this hard to put on a front filter. This was my first time dealing with a 750D case. I built on about 3 or 4 of them now, so I know how to put this filter on first time. There we go. I finally was able to put the filter on, and I'm like, wow, that shouldn't have been so hard. So there is the documentation that comes with the 750D. This is a full tower case, so this case is very, very huge. It takes up pretty much a big portion of the countertop there. And having a full tower case is good because it'll allow you to expand and put a bunch of stuff in. So here's the side of the case. We're going to go ahead and peel this film off. And then there's also another roll of it on the inside. So we're going to go ahead and undo the thumb screws and take a look at that. Side panel just pops off. I'll peel off the protective film off of the plexiglass side panel window there. And there we go. We got a nice reflective side panel window there. It's reflective because of the camera. You can probably see my DSLR there for a second. So now here is the inside of the 750D. You'll see that we have up to 6 3.5-inch drives that can be supported by those 2 drive bay caddies. We will be removing those because we will be using SATA SSDs. So those drive caddies on the bottom will be getting removed. So there is a close-up of the hard drive caddies at the bottom. And you can see that the little cardboard box inside there, that is going to have all of our accessories and screws. So let's go ahead and remove that. And you just pinch in on the levers there and just slides right out. So inside there we'll have all our motherboard standoffs, our case screws, and miscellaneous accessories. nothing else in the box there. We'll go ahead and put that back in there for now. And here's the caddies for the hard drives on this case. If you are going to have 3.5 inch hard drives for like a NAS, don't use this case. As you can see, these are cheap plastic hard drive caddies. They're really crappy, but thankfully I will not be using them. So here on the left hand side of the bottom, you could see that we do have a bottom power supply, and then we have a power supply filter that goes and slides in the bottom as well. I wish you could pull this filter out from the front. So that is a con of this case, is the filter does slide out, but you have to slide it out from the back. But that will be our bottom power supply fan. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove those bottom hard drive caddies, since we will not be utilizing them in our workstation build. So if you lay the case flat on your surface and expose the bottom of the case, you can see that we have 4 screws that hold on each hard drive caddy. So to remove these caddies, all you gotta do is just unscrew it. And the hard drive caddy just lifts right out. Keep these screws somewhere safe. I'm gonna end up putting these screws into like a little sandwich bag or a Ziploc bag, and I'll put like a little post-it note or a piece of paper in there that will say hard drive caddy screws. Like I said, I filmed all this back in 2019 when I built my workstation, so some of the tools and methods of course, my old style. There's my old screwdriver. I now, of course, have a Pickwick, but yeah, I'm finally getting around to maybe editing some of these videos and making the overlays for them, right? So there you go. We removed the bottom 2 hard drive caddies, and as you can see right through the bottom filter there. So you can set these caddies just back in the original case box. And there's just another angle at that bottom power supply fan filter. So you can see how it works. It just slides in at the bottom there. And this will help for your fan that will be intaking air at the bottom. It will help keep it filtered so it's not bringing in dust into the power supply. And there's just a final look at the bottom of the case, what that looks like. So we just set it right back up. As you'll notice, the hard drive caddies have been removed, and there they are on the table. There's a close-up of the hard drive caddies. Like I said, the plastic caddy is very cheap. That is definitely a con of this case, but it's not a con for me because I will not be utilizing them. So I'll go ahead and set those in a box. And I'm just looking at them, seeing how they link together, because I believe you can slide them together and combine them into one row of hard drive caddies instead of having them side by side. But it's irrelevant. And as you can see right there are the hard drive caddy screws that I put in a sandwich bag, and I put a little post-it note in there so they're labeled. So I do not lose these screws, and I know what they end up going to. Okay, so now we're going to replace this rear case fan that comes with the 750D. This is just a default Corsair case fan. It's a 3-pin voltage mode fan. So on the back we have 4 screws. I'm just going to go ahead and unscrew them. We will be replacing this fan with a Noctua NF-A14 FLX. This is also a 3-pin voltage mode fan. It's a 140 millimeter fan, up to 1200 RPMs. So easy as that, just unscrew it. And there is our crappy Corsair case fan removed. And 3-pin connector, which you can probably barely make out. So let's go ahead and install the replacement fan. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the front intake filter. As you can see, we have 2 included Corsair case fans, but we were replacing those out with the Noctua ones. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew these fans. Now, it's really important that you keep these screws that come with the case, because those screws are the right length that you're going to need for your replacement fans. So you definitely cannot toss the screws that come out of these fans here in the front, because there's a very deep, shallow depth that has to fill. These are very long screws. So I'm just going to go ahead and unscrew these fans and install the new ones. Got to route the cable for the fan through the grommet or the shroud there, whatever you want to call it, part of the frame. And these are also 3-pin voltage mode fans. I'm going to go ahead and remove the top one now. Same process. You just unscrew some screws and take stuff out, you know? The tricky part is putting the new ones on, because you have to line up the fan holes with the specific holes on the case. And the case has a lot of holes that are not meant for the fan. So you got to know what holes go to the fan grill. And there's different size fans. You got 120 mil, you got 140. In this case, we'll be putting in 2 140s. So you have to use the right fan holes. And you'll see here later on when I go to put those in, it can be a little bit tricky. And it's best to grab a flashlight and take a look to make sure you can see through all the holes, if that makes sense. So there are those screws. You definitely want to hold on to those, because we're going to need those. So I'm just going to set those aside, and we're going to go ahead and unbox the new fans. So here's our first fan we're going to be installing. This is a Noctua NF-A14. And Noctua always does have very fancy packaging. The back of it just tells you all the specifications of the fan, so I'll go ahead and unbox it, slide it on out there, and like so. These are pretty much the most highly regarded computer fans. They're very quiet and pretty efficient. They're not going to move the most airflow compared to like a Delta fan, but they're definitely better than just using the bog standard case fans that come with your case. So it has the different various cables and adapters, and they even give you extension cables if the cable on the fan is not long enough to reach the standoff on the motherboard. They do give you extension cables as well. So Noctua is pretty good at giving you all these different various cabling options. You can also see they give you 4 rubber grommets as well if you want to use grommets to fasten down the fan to the case, but I recommend using screws. In this case, since we're using these fans for the front, we can't use the grommets on the front. The grommets can only be used on like the back fan and the top and bottom fans. So here is the front case bezel. Now the direction to put these is the side that has the sticker is always the side that has the air, is always the side where the air is going to be blowing, if that makes sense. Now, all fans will usually also have arrows on them, as you can see right here. They'll tell you the direction that the air is going to be blowing and the direction the fans are going to be spinning. Now, since these are in the front, you want the air being sucked into the case. So it's going to be an intake fan, if that makes sense, right? You don't want it flipped the other way because you don't want it blowing out at you like a desk fan, right? No. The computer has to be able to suck air in to be able to breathe. So on the front, you're always going to position these as an intake. So the sticker side will actually be facing inside of the computer. So as you see right here, you can see the bare side. That is the correct polarity for these fans on the front. And there I'm putting the long screwdriver, or the long screws in, and I'm trying to line the screws up with the case. And this is the part where it can get a little bit tricky, finding what holes go to the fan grill. And sometimes you'll have to, you might be able to get one of the fans mounted on, but you end up not being able to get the second fan mounted on due to the positioning as well of the holes. So it can be tricky at first if you haven't used this particular case and know its layout. So as you can see, I'm still trying to find what hole is actually for the fan, because on the front of this bezel, there's probably like 18,000 different holes, and 9 out of 10 of them will like line up with the screw on the fan, and it's like, okay, which one of these is for the fan grill? And you kind of really got to look at it. And it helped me get out a flashlight and just shine a flashlight through all 4 sides. So there's me just seeing if it matches up with their case fan, which it does. I thought at first maybe the rubber grommets on the Noctua made it too thick or misaligned it, but that wasn't the case. It's just going to be a little tricky at first, aligning it up on the front of this case here. Pondering, pondering, pondering. See, people can make videos all day long showing you, oh, it's so simple, you can have a computer built in 5 minutes. But there's actually parts to where things can stump you a little bit or be a little bit tricky. Even though you know what's got to be done and it seems straightforward, there can be a little bit of mishaps and trickery. So as you can see right there on the case, there's a hole that says 120 and there's a hole that says 140. And then you also have 2 screw holes at the top. You really got to pay attention to those details and get stuff lined up. This is a 140 mil fan. We're going to be installing 2 of them. So yeah, the fan can go on, but if you put it at the wrong layout or direction or whatever, you actually end up covering the holes for the second fan. So it's not that easy to just screw right onto the case in just any hole you want. You got to know what holes it goes into to line up correctly. So as you probably saw there for a second, I had a flashlight out and I'm trying to beam a light through the hole and through the fan, so I can make sure things are going to actually line up properly. And see, that's another thing, is when you're working inside some of these cases, it can be light as day out. You know, you have a bunch of lights on, but when you're actually inside that case working on it, it's so dark, it's hard to see anything when you're looking inside those cases. So it's always good to have a flashlight on hand. So I think I managed to get 1 screw in, so now I'm trying to get the other screw in while throwing some light through it with a flashlight. And yeah, the camera is slightly out of focus here because I didn't lock focus when I moved this camera angle to that, but you get the gist of what I'm doing here. Okay, so I managed to get the first 2 screws at the top in, so now once you're able to line up those first 2 at the top, the other ones go in like pot. I'm still checking with the flashlight just to make sure it's in the right groove and everything's looking okay, but 20 minutes later you finally find able to align the fan, but I think we'll end up having an issue here when I go to install the second fan. But now you guys, since I'm up closer, you probably can see the 140 and the 120 marked screws. So this top fan actually should have gone down 1 layer onto the next set of screws. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, right? So I already got the second fan already unboxed, and let's go ahead and install it. Now, once you get your first fan mounted and lined up, the next one should just go right butt up against it, and it should just line up. Ideally, right? That's how it's supposed to work. So there's the screws. Let's go ahead and align it. Now see, when you put these fans on, you always want to face them to where you're going to get as much cable as possible. You want that cable to be as close to one of those cutouts on the frame. So I don't know if you saw there where I adjusted the positioning of the fan to where the cable would easily just go right out the side of the frame there. This makes it better on cable management, makes it nicer, and that's how you're supposed to install a fan. So I got this bottom fan butt up against the top fan. Will the screws go right in? That's the million-dollar question. They look like they will. Having a little bit of trouble with this upper left one. Oh, I think I got it. And yeah, the camera is slightly out of focus there. I do, when I was filming this, I did threw my camera into manual focus. I don't move stuff around that a whole lot, and I don't like my camera, focusing in and out, like focus breathing. So there we go. The front 2 intake fans have been installed. We took out the Corsair case fans and replaced them with Noctuas. And that's just me going over and visually inspecting it and make sure everything looks okay. But I think the fans are installed. Gotta have a Coca-Cola, right? And we turn that around, you got a nice interior view of the 750D. It's a very big case, and it has quite some heft to it to lift it around. Notice something we forgot? Well, we removed the back fan, but we didn't replace it yet, so let's go ahead and knock out this rear case fan. Now this one will be blowing air out, so the sticker side's going to be facing outwards. Basically, you're going to go the same exact polarity as the front fans, but it'll be internal. So I don't know if you saw there for a quick second, when we removed the rear case fan, I kept the rear case fan screws. You're going to want to keep those because they're going to match with the case, which is black. And sometimes the fans will give you case screws that are silver. So lining up this back case fan is not going to be as hard as the front two. As you can see right there, both the holes on the top are lining right up. We'll take the black screw that we got from the previous fan and we'll just line it up and screw it in. We'll line up the other side, as you can see right there. Line up the bottom, shouldn't be too hard. Notice how the sticker side is facing outwards, right? So it will be blowing air out of the case, out the back. And sometimes you don't want to tighten the screws all the way down because sometimes you might not be able to line up the other ones correctly. So what I did there, the reason why I took all those out is I was repositioning the fan to get as most cable as possible. So before you install a fan, keep that in mind. You want to position the fan to where you're going to get the most efficient cable run to the motherboard. So that was me repositioning the fan there. See, at least I caught it before I installed the motherboard and everything, right? See, sometimes we forget those things, but the professional is able to pick up on those things a lot quicker in the game. So see how I picked up on that before I even had the fan all the way fully mounted? I only had a couple screws in and I picked up on it. Like, oh, forgot to position it for the best cable run. And the screw's slightly off, so I'm going to back out on those top screws a little bit to be able to try to realign the bottom here. And look at that. See? And the other screw on the right-hand side, it looks like it's lined up perfectly. So you want to screw these in about 3/4 of the way, and then once they're all in, tighten them all down. And there we go. Back rear case fan has been successfully installed. And there's another view of that back case fan. So that's what the box looks like. So now we're going to install the optical drives. Optical drives, you say? Yes. So this is the Lite-On IHAS 124-14. This is the best drive for DAE, digital audio extraction. So if you're going to use exact audio copy and rip some CDs, that's the best drive to use. This is a spare DVD drive that I installed in it. It has since been replaced with a Blu-ray LibreDrive. So this is kind of obsolete here. That's no longer in the build, but that was a spare drive I threw in there. So as you can see, these have little clips. You pinch in on those two clips, and then the front cover just comes right out. So here is what the front looks like. It looks a little dirty though, a little dusty. This is how it came. So I'm gonna get like a paper towel and wipe that, and of course flip the bird at the same time, right? Just get a damp paper towel here and try to wipe away that dust or dirt or whatever it is. And of course, paper towel is gonna leave a little bit of residue, but we'll brush that off with our hand. Best to use my t-shirt, right? That looks a little better. So this case does have 3 optical drive bay covers. So I'm just pinching in on those tabs and pushing out. I did install a 3rd optical drive, but at the time of making the video, the 3rd optical drive did not arrive in the mail yet. So during the case prep video, we just had 2 optical drives, but a 3rd was installed. So I actually have 2 Blu-ray drives. One is a Pioneer drive, one is an ASUS LibreDrive, and then I have a Lite-On IHAS from my DAE. So there's me installing the Lite-On IHAS. Now these drives, to install them, all you really gotta do is just line them up to the groove and then they slide in. You might have to undo the retention clip, but once you release that retention clip, slide it in, and then it should lock into place. Well, click into place sort of deal, which I will screw them down just to have a more professional installation. Just a bit more secure than just relying on the clips that clip it in. And there is the spare drive, which is actually no longer in this build. That's been replaced by the LibreDrive. So that's what it looks like with the 2 drives slid in, but we're not finished here. We're going to do it professionally. So we're going to professionally anchor those down using screws. So I don't know how well you can see, but you can see right there, there are 2 screws for each drive. So we got 4 screws. So right now I'm looking in the that little box that had all the screws for the case, and I'm locating and identifying the optical drive screws, which will be labeled ODD in the documentation. So I was finally able to identify the screws. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw the drive bays in here. Now most people won't do this; they'll just rely on the retention clips, but we are professional grade here. They may have to wiggle the drive a little bit to line up the holes a little bit better, but they'll go in there. Also helps to have a magnetized screwdriver, which at the time, this was when I didn't have my newer equipment that I have now. And these screws that you're dealing with, they are very, very tiny. So you don't want to drop them, you don't want to lose them. You gotta be very careful with these tiny screws. They're gonna be very easy to strip the heads off of, so you just want them to be a little bit snug. That's all you're really looking for with these screws, is you just want them to be snug. So there we go. Both the hard drive or the optical drives are both secured on this side, but there are screws on the other side. So we're not going to skimp. We're going to go ahead and install the screws that need to be installed on the other side as well. So I don't know how we can see the 2 screws there on the other side. So we got one for each drive there. And it looks like we actually have ones in the back too, but I don't know if I secured those ones or not. So there's the bottom drive. Now it's time to do the top drive. Looking good. So that should conclude our case prep.